Hello there, Assalamu alaikum. You're welcome to our YouTube channel and to our Tajweed class. On today's series, we have our first MADD, which is Al-MADD Al-Jaiz Al-Munfasil, or MADD Jaiz Munfasil as written on the board, or simply known as MADD Al-Jaiz. Any which one you call it is all the same. What is this MADD Jaiz? We want to get into the definition, but before we get into the definition as it is written there on the board, I want to start by breaking down the meaning of the title itself, because the title is everything also. MADD, as you can see, there means prolong. Here, in our last video, which is that of the introduction of MADD, we went in depth into what this MADD actually is, and that is why the video was actually what is even MADD in Tajweed. If you are not familiar with MADD already, or you want much more explanation, you can go over. I will link it down below in the description and also pin it in the comment section, so you can go over and check the MADD series. It is in our playlist. Jaiz. Jaiz means permissible. It means this MADD is not an obligatory type of MADD. It is not obligatory on you to sound it or prolong it up to the harakats the rule requires. So you can just sound it for 2 harakats as normally it is, as any MADD is, instead of following the number of harakats given by the rule of MADD al-Jaiz. So it is just permissible and not compulsory. And the last thing here is MUNFASIL, that is detached or separated. It means this MADD, for you to identify this MADD, it must have been contained in 2 separate words, 2 detached words. And that is how you know that certainly this is a MADD al-Jaiz. If you see that the MADD, the whole MADD, then the whole elements of the MADD is contained in only 1 word, then it is not MADD al-Jaiz. Now to the proper definition as it is on the board. Permissible prolongation occurs when a word ends with a MADD. And of course, we have explained MADD, right? In our last video is also there, which is Ya, Alif, or Wa. And you remember the sidekick? I wouldn't go in here, but you check the last video, inshallah, is all there. And is followed by a word that begins with a Hamza. And this is the Hamza there. Simply put, is that the first word that contains this MADD must have a MADD to end it, and the second word that contains this MADD al-Jaiz must begin with a Hamza. We all know that a MADD is to be prolonged for 2 harakats normally, but the rule of MADD Jaiz says that you to apply the rule of a MADD Jaiz, it must be for either 4 harakats, just as you can see on the board, or 5 harakats, just as you can see also there. However, you can't prolong it for 4 and 5 harakats at the same time. Now, if you're reciting and you get to a place where let's say in the same verse, there are 2 or 3 MADD al-Jaiz. And then the first one, you cited it and counted for 4 harakats. In the second one, you are not allowed to now switch to 5 harakats. Instead, at a time, you are supposed to take one option. You either prolong the both of them or the 3 MADDs at the same time for 4 harakats, or you prolong them for 5 harakats. But that doesn't mean you will always, up to the day of Qiyamah, always make it 4 harakats or 5 harakats. Just at the moment. It is just at the moment. If now you're reciting and the whole of MADD al-Jaiz, you make an intention to use 4 harakats, after a while, maybe when you're reciting another surah, you can decide to change it if you like, and that would be okay. But when you are reciting at a time, you are to recite it for either 4 or 5 harakat. However, I want to make a point here to say that for you to still identify this madul jaiz properly, it always comes with a secondary mud accompanying it, attached to it. You know, when there is either of the muds, either alif, waw, or ya, you would always find a secondary mud on it. Before we move into the practical example from the Holy Qur'an, I want to make a point here to say that words that have ya, something like ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, ya ayyuhan nabi, ya something, that ya, mostly you would see that they are joined, the hamza is joined with the ya, something like this. Like in this place now, can you see? This verse starts with Ya ayyuhal ladhina, and the rule of mad al jaiz is that the mad and the hamza must be detached. It is MUNFASIL. It must be contained in 2 separate words. That is, there should be something like a barrier here now. This mad should be in the first one, and then the hamza should be in the second one. But in this place, it violates the rule in the sense that we have both the madda and the hamza contained in one word. But this is the exception. However, it is not even in one word. It's just even the way it is written. Ya, then ayyuha. Ya is different than ayyuha is different. But just know that this is the exception of it. Whenever you see anything with ya, and of course, remember this is our secondary mud. Okay, so now another example of it. Now to the proper examples of mad al jaiz in the Quran. The first step for us to understand that there is a mad al jaiz, mostly for me personally, I always spot it with the secondary mud. Now the first thing is there is a secondary mud here, right? After the secondary mud is actually on top of our mud. Wow, right? Okay, let me clean it a bit so that you see. However, in this place, I do not want you to be confused about having this alif after the mud. This alif is not an alif. It has actually been tied up. That is to tell you it has no use there. You see, it has been tied up. It has no use there. So do not be confused. It serves as nothing there. So we have already have it. The first word, which is this one, and then the second one. The second word is this one. The first word ends with a mud wow and a secondary mud on the mud wow. Though that secondary mud is just there for the indication, for like an easy way to indicate it. And then it starts, the second word starts with a hamza. You can see our hamza alif there. Okay, this is how you know that it is a mad al jaiz. How are you now supposed to recite this place? So the mad al jaiz is even many. Here also there is ja. This is mad alif. That is in the first word, ja. And then the second word starts with akum. Yeah, it's there. So the whole of this place is even, there are 3 mad al jaiz at a row. So if I'm to recite it now, the rule of mad jaiz provides that I will either count it for 4 or 5 counts. Now let's begin with 5 counts. For all these 3, I will recite them with 5 counts. Now let's see. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in جاءكم. This is 5. If I will recite it for 4 counts, it will be يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن جاءكم. You see, it's not up to that one. If I decide to elongate it with 5 counts, then it will be all through 5. If I decide to make it 4, it will be all through 4. I can't make 1 5 and then 1 4. It will be wrong. And of course, the other thing we need to take note of is that MADD jaiz is not compulsory. So if you wish to, you can just elongate it for 2 counts as it is the normal count for any MADD. Now let's recite it with the 2 counts and you would see that it's all the same still. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن جاءكم. You see, it's just 2 counts, nothing, but it's still correct. So whichever one you wanted. However, I just noticed something that people might be confused. We say Hamza. You know, not everybody is really familiar with this Arabic letters, and that is why I want to make this clarification. You see this place? That thing that looks like Hamza there, though this is not even MADD jaiz, but I just want to clarify this in case it comes out in the form of MADD jaiz. Know that this one here is not Hamza, is Ain. Hamza, for Hamza, you would never see it joined together with anything, just as this one is joined together with Lam. You can't see it joined together. It will always be separate on its own. So be careful of this. This is Ain and not Hamza. The example is this place. First word, second word. Right? First word, second word. Here the first word ends with MADD. And of course this is the sidekick. You remember the sidekick of MADD al-Waw. It is very, very small, but it's still the same MADD al-Waw. And of course there is a secondary MADD on it. And then the second word begins with a Hamza, as you can see also there. So this is a MADD jaiz. Do not confuse it because this waw is a small waw. If you watch our previous video, you would know, you would understand it. And if you don't understand it properly, just watch our first video on MADD and you would know what I'm talking about properly. So now of course this is MADD jaiz. If another example here now is in MADD al-Ya. So you can see MADD al-Ya with the secondary MADD there, and the first word, which is fi, ends with MADD al-Ya, a MADD. And then the second one, the second word is ummi. It begins with Hamza. So fi ummi, just as the other ones. I hope with all this now you have understood MADD jaiz, MUNFASIL. Wherever you see it in the Quran, you would be able to recite it yourselves.